Hi, this is Fred Olen Ray, and I'd like to welcome you to the commentary track for the motion picture Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. And I have sitting in here with me today almost my lifelong pal and co-writer on this film with me, Mr.
Lee Lankford.
Lee Lankford. There he is. Lee, have we done a commentary track before?
Yeah, for Scalps.
Yes, you're right, because I know you're bugging me about the fact that we don't have too many microphones.
Right.
You know, I started this thing at one time where I used to sign my name to the beginning of things. There was a time when I kind of thought I wanted to be a cult figure. I've since changed my mind, but I went out of my way to do things and wacky things like William Castle to try to be remembered, and unfortunately, it worked.
Yeah.
Now this is my wife at the time, Dawn Wildsmith, wearing a saucy little wig. And the voiceover guy, the guy doing the voice right now, is Lucky Brown from The Astounding She-Monster and Giant from the Unknown and Blood of Dracula's Castle. And he was an old guy that I used to say was older than the invention of celluloid. And he owned a ratty little studio down in Hollywood on Seward where we shot this, called Movie Tech.
Right. He's still around today, right?
I saw him the other night at the Academy Awards of Magic. He looks exactly the same. I think something's going on.
Maybe he's a vampire.
I don't know. He was kind of pale. So anyway, this was the opening. Dawn didn't really want to be in these. You could see in a lot of these little films I make that she would, like Beverly Hills Vamp, she'd be in one tiny little part. She didn't really want to be a titty girl.
It's memorable though.
Yeah. So she gets her little thing.
Yeah.
So this is there was an original score done for this, and when it came in, it was one of those things we did by distance. And I didn't really get to hear it till we were actually cutting it. This was before the age of computers, and you had to put everything in on a moviola, and I didn't really care for it. And so I had a friend who had a band, and they had this song, and they said, "You want to use this song?" And we did. Yeah. And that's what's on here. And there's some other songs by some other people throughout the thing. And the soundtrack did come out on a CD. And they want $100 for it on eBay. Damn! Somebody wants mine. I'll sell it to you for $50.
Yeah, I got a couple of them. I think I might be able to find.
This is when Michelle Bauer was trying to shake the Bauer and be McClellan. It didn't work. Again,
she was shaking a lot of other stuff. It was good.
She was. This was at her prime top shakeability.
Yeah, fantastic.
I really believe that The Tomb and this film are probably the best of Michelle. As far as total babe-o-meter goes.
You don't even need to strike a match on that to make it light up. Just touch it.
Yeah.
She's fantastic.
There's so many things going on in here. There's a credit coming up.
Scott Ressler, man, went on to big things with David Lynch and.
Scott Ressler did some very interesting things in this film because this was his first film as a DP. So he kind of blew it a few times, and you'll see it somewhere along the line.
But he survived. I love the look of the film, though. I think he caught something that really.
Corey Kaplan, there's a person who has received so many Emmys she needs to build several shelves.
Yeah.
X-Files, of course, is among them. And then we took pseudonyms on this film. Very definitely, there they are, aimed at a couple fellows who I really don't know personally, but they got in our way.
They irritated us. And then you busted us on the next credit anyway.
Well,
so.
You know what? I wasn't going to let him go away and really take credit for the work.
Yeah. So.
But
yeah, and I am not B.J. Nelson or B.J. whatever, Nestle's or something like that. They were just both fake names.
Nancy Polian.
They're just both fake names.
She produced Antoine Fisher and Dude, Where's My Car?
No kidding.
Yeah, she went on. She was my personal assistant. And she helped me with this film, so I gave her that credit.
A lot of people survived this movie.
There's a lot of talent in this film, heading in each direction.
That's a nice shot. Did Scott shoot that?
No, Gary Graver shot that.
Gary shot that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice shot.
There is some Gary Graver material in this film because he went out on it. It was actually a 5.5-day movie.
Jesus.
We shot maybe 6, maybe it was 5.5 on the first go round. There's a little jade statue over there on the right from Armed Response.
Yeah.
I guess I'd stolen that from the show. It was originally made over a 3-day holiday weekend, and then the following weekend with pickups for Moon and Scorpio being shot in between them. And because you could pick up the camera equipment on Friday afternoon, I did shoot Friday night at my house. So that was 5.5 days. And then we went out with Gary. later, and we shot all the driving sequences. This, of course, Jay Richardson, who was just making a re-entry into the acting business at this time. This was probably his first film, as I may remember, that he did when he came back into acting. Of course, he's done about 1 million films since then. So this is actually the West Side Bar. It's owned by a guy named Nick Marino, who was one of the partners on this film. And this is the outside and the inside. This guy here, Dookie Flyswatter, is really Michael Sonny, who had a Haunted Garage and was a writer. I think he probably still has Haunted Garage. Jimmy Williams is a guy who's still in the business. He rents cop materials now, guns and uniforms and things. And he was a movie tech guy. We met him around movie tech. And there's just no budget on this show. Absolutely no budget whatsoever.
But when you have Michelle and that other gal, you don't need a budget.
Well, the less wardrobe, probably, the better.
Right. Right.
And this is one of those cases. Lee and I have collaborated a lot over the years, but it's usually me trashing something out, then Lee ripping it apart. And I remember on one script, he didn't even rewrite it. He just wrote all over it. What are you, an idiot? Stupid. This is stupid. Changes. You would just get the script back with these hand-scribbled notes berating you and telling you what a moron you were and to do something different.
Hey, I was in a hurry, and I was drinking, too.
Oh,
this is back in my 15 years of drinking, so I have very, very hazy memories of this.
I really thought we should have busted open a bottle of Jack to do this commentary the way the film was shot.
Well, it's noon. This is noon on a Sunday, which is not a problem as far as breaking open the bottle, as far as I'm concerned. But this commentary should have been done at like 3 a.m. with us totally in the bag, without a doubt. And because that's how we wrote it. And matter of fact, I remember. I have a vague memory of this young lady. What's her name?
Esther Elise.
Yeah, Esther Elise. You were shooting a scene with Esther that comes later in the movie in your bathroom.
That was the first Friday night.
And I was in the front room still writing the script.
Yeah. or tearing it apart and reconfiguring it.
I didn't tear this one apart. You didn't have any time to look at the script, so I was actually writing the thing as you were shooting in the back room. So that was a crazy time. That's the one memory I have of working on this is me writing in the front room while you're shooting in the back room. So let's try to stay ahead of
you. Yeah, that scene's coming up. And that was actually at my house back in the day. Now this is shot in 35 millimeter, and over the course of the year, some of the negative elements have been mislaid or lost. We're not sure what's happened. This is from the only 35 millimeter print element that exists at this time. And, of course, this is one that has shown in a theater a few times, so it's got that grindhouse look to it. There's a jumpy splice here and there, some scratches.
Without any digital ads.
without anybody like Quentin Tarantino trying to make it work.
This grindhouse comes authentic.
Yeah, it's got look at all that gate weave. Well, that's 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
This is a movie tech.
Hey man, they spend like $5 million putting this look on a movie. You got it for cheap.
I know. Movie Tech was a place where we'd first shot The Tomb, and it was one big room, and what you'd do is put one set on one side, and you'd be painting and building the other set just right behind the camera.
Yeah.
And turn around and you'd shoot the other set while they would take this set. And this set appears in this film, I don't know how many times, reconfigured. I'm sure I'm gonna see it again. Like I said, I don't know how many times we're gonna see this set. Corey Kaplan, she was a very funky girl, and she has all this British stuff and all these weird things and stuff is her take on all this.
Yeah.
But she's done very well for herself.
You see her name all the time. She was a really nice girl too. Really good girl.
Really, and we did a lot of films. I think I started with her on Armed Response.
Yeah, and Maxine
Shepard, yeah.
Who also has gone on to do a lot of big stuff. Sometimes they work together, and sometimes they.
I haven't heard of Maxine in a while. Ted Tunney,
she's still doing things.
Who was Corey's assistant, went on to become. He was our art guy for a while, but then went into gaffing, and he's on Lost now in Hawaii, and he's doing pretty well by himself. Most everybody has survived this. Now here's a song where we didn't know what the song was, so we let her play this Elvis song, "Won't You Wear My Ring Around Your Neck." And so she's dancing to that, And I guess she didn't know that we weren't really going to be able to get the Elvis song because she's like acting it out and she's pointing to the ring on her neck and all this stuff. And we did try to find an Elvis sound-alike, and I think we came up with a pretty good song for this.
It's funny, every time I see the scene, I don't think I've ever heard the song. I'm just too busy watching
Well,
this. It's pretty good.
I know. It's got that.
Look at that line going down the side.
Got that thing, guys. Like, well, you know what?
That's fantastic.
That was picked up at the Toronto Bee Fest, I think.
So,
there's the ring around her neck.
Right. Hey.
Look at this, though. This is
that's a work of art. Right
this is what the guys pay to see.
Damn.
And you know what? You couldn't find a person with less attitude. Less attitude. And she's actually, of all the girls, I always thought that she had great comedic talent.
Yeah.
She had great timing for a joke. A lot of girls got by being able to sort of carry a line.
Yeah.
And pop the top. But Michelle, she could actually perform. You would hire her in non-nude roles, and I have.
She really gets it.
Just because of her acting ability. This scene is probably the best remembered scene
there, dude.
And well, you know, it was. You know, it might have gotten an R rating. I don't remember.
Should have been an X.
There's no sex in this.
No, it doesn't matter.
No, it does.
That
does.
Though.
Oh, that. You know what? Tell it to Showtime.
Okay.
There's no sex in this film. Nobody lives long enough to actually get laid.
Right.
This is back in a time when I actually was fairly timid about filming girls with their clothes off.
I can tell that.
Well, you know, some things just take off on their own. We have Michelle Bauer. You just wind her up and she goes. This was way before the days where we would be actually filming people having sex in a movie. I don't think that came along till Inner Sanctum.
Yeah.
You know, you always have the threat of sex.
Or a simulated something happening.
Simulated shot of Jimmy. I mean, she's not even there. She's over at the dresser drawer getting her chainsaw.
That's true. Yeah, this is probably the most notorious scene in this movie.
I think it's because of the shower cap and the covering the Elvis painting with the plastic shower curtain. But she's like, the way her eyes kind of roll back and forth like one of those Jerry Mahoney dolls.
That's great.
This is so low budget. That looks like my director's chair leaning in the shot. Oh no!
Come on, you gotta. Yeah, who knows? She could have a director's chair.
And the rollers, the ice skates are also a nice touch. This was made on short ends, and short end, you can kind of see it gets a little grainy here and there. The short end is. This is so funny. This is so funny. We didn't have any special effects budget either. So we just stood off camera and we threw these body parts at her that we bought at a store and we had styrofoam cups of blood and we would just throw them. And we had a Hudson sprayer, but the sprayer wouldn't take anything thick, so it's just red water, so it's not reading very well. So we just really had to just keep pouring it. And the saw's running though. You can see the smoke coming off of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know, the shot of him, it really looks kind of real, but thank God the other stuff doesn't.
Well, there was a rubber neck. There's a rubber neck appliance there that you hold on with the Velcro strap.
It takes the edge off of it to be wacky like that.
I know. Anyway, back to the short ends thing is, at the end of the day, if you're running a 1,000-foot mag, and at the end of the day you end up you've got 300 feet left in the mag, you don't leave it overnight. You break off the remainder and you put it in a can and tape it back up. Supposedly it's still good.
Then you shoot a movie with it.
Right. Well, at the end of the show, people have cans and cans and cans of 100-foot, 200-foot, 400. If it's the whole 400-foot load or 1,000-foot load, they call it a recan. None of it actually got shot. The trouble is, it gets left in the trunk of a car. The sun shines on it. You don't know how old it is, and they sell it for pennies on the foot to these brokers, and you go to the broker and then you buy from the broker, and it's probably shot on Fuji, so it has a brownish sort of tinge, and that's the mark of Fuji. Well, that could be a movie, the mark of Fuji.
The mark of Fuji.
And
you get sued for sure.
And a 100-foot roll in 35 millimeter was only 90 seconds. No, it was only a minute. 90 feet was a minute. So if you got a 200-foot or 300-foot roll, what you're looking at is 2 or 3 minutes at a time before you have to reload. It ain't like popping a tape in. You used to take the whole mag off, and there's a person you hire just to reload the mags. And on a short end show, that guy's got his hands in the bag all day long.
That should have taken 5 days just to reload the camera.
Well, Gary Graver had a thing called the Western Reload. He said it was done in the old days when guys had made 2 real Westerns and they were always fighting the sun. And Gary could hold a mag in one hand and change the other mag out. And we timed him one time. He could do it in about 45 seconds.
Man.
Pretty amazing. Now this is the offices of Trans World or Entertainment, or what we used to call Third World Entertainment.
Please.
Where Lee and I worked or toiled, as they say,
Slave.
for some time. And
couple of movies.
we did Deep Space here, Commando Squad, and
You did Commando Squad.
Moon and
just did
Scorpio.
Deep Space. Yeah.
And this is, I don't know if this is Alan Emil's office. I don't know whose office this was, but I got to use their offices and their camera equipment for the weekends around the pickups on Moon and Scorpio because they didn't want to pay me what I thought my time was worth. And it worked out. It worked out.
Got a movie out of it.
We got a movie out of it, and you know, you don't see much of Deep Space or Moon and Scorpio anymore.
No, this is still around.
Although I did see Commando Squad in Spanish on one of the Latino channels here recently. It was a pretty nice transfer.
Yeah.
And also saw that
It's beloved in Mexico.
Alienator was on MGM HD the other night.
They love it in Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're very popular in Spanish-speaking territory.
Well, it was about South American drug dealers.
There you go.
This guy Dennis Mooney went on to not too many things, but I'll tell you the truth. His picture came across my desk recently.
Really?
On a casting call for the film that we're making right now, and this is the year 2008.
You should hire him.
You know,
20
I
years later.
brought a few people in who had worked for me before in some films, and you realize that 10 or 20 years has gone by. Dave O'Hara.
No.
Dave O'Hara's
No
picture
kidding.
came across in the
Really?
breakdowns. Yeah. Yeah. Dave O'Hara was a very funny guy. He was in some of our early stuff.
I saw him at Pavilions a couple times, but I guess he lived in the neighborhood.
Well, he
But
outpriced himself for me.
This
so I
guy
couldn't
is
hire
pretty
him
funny
anymore.
in this movie, I thought.
Which guy, Dennis Mooney?
Yeah, I thought he was pretty funny.
Those guys, I think, are real cops. They were somebody's friend, and they came over, and they had their squad car, and they came in. They did, because we couldn't afford the uniforms. I don't remember who they were, but I believe they were real police officers. I love the Tom and Jerry lock.
There's Don.
On,
There's Don
Dawn.
Wildsmith again.
And she's doing her thing. You know, as I was placing the chapter stops on this film, I was looking for the different scenes. I realized there's only about 12 scenes in the entire movie.
Really?
Yeah, there weren't too many chapter stops to put in. I could put them in at every single scene change.
No.
I only had about 12.
Got to be more than that.
No, this puppy hustles.
Really?
It hustles. It does.
It must be long scenes though.
There, it is. It is.
We dragged it out.
But you know the one thing it doesn't do, and the credit to all the guys who worked on it, is it doesn't rely on master shots to get by on 5.5 days and 6 days, which you would expect.
Yeah.
On a show like this, you would not expect close-up of him, close-up of her, close-up here, wide shot on the door. And that gets down to having a crew that understands, you know, what's going on, and they move very quickly.
Yeah.
And they move very fast. And at this time, there were no such things as monitors for shows like this, video assist. You had to really kind of ask the DP how it went.
How'd it go?
And for years, I would say cut, and then I would say Gary's name, because Gary is my principal DP, and I would say cut, Gary. Gary would say T.O.B., which meant thing of beauty.
Yeah.
And
Well, you never could
moving on.
necessarily believe him. He just wanted to move on
That's
to the
just
next thing.
sometimes painfully true.
Sometimes later you find out it wasn't a T.O.B.
Strangely enough, after all this time, I still say cut, Gary, sometimes.
Wow.
That's a real change.
That was really a real
That's
change.
a real change.
That's a real...
Now, this guy looking down in the bag.
You know what's great? It's great about Grindhouse, man. It's just completely saved the concept of
Yeah.
scratches on your movie because now it's attractive. People like it again. It's in again.
Yeah. Anyway, the guy with the bag, went on to star in Puppet Master 2. He's the guy wrapped up like the Invisible Man, and his name might have been Steve Wells, and he was in this and in Biohazard. But they tell me though that when he went on the Puppet Master 2, he became a star and might have been a little difficult. I don't know. Is that possible?
Well, once you wrap a guy like the Invisible Man, you can get away with anything.
Well, that's like Dave O'Hara. Dave O'Hara was in everything we did. Every film we did, we offered him a part. He came in one day and he said that he'd had the part of a motorcycle cop, and Stallone's over the top, and now it's rated tripled.
Yeah.
And I couldn't afford him anymore.
That's it.
And that was it. I never saw Dave O'Hara again.
I saw him at Pavilions. Yeah, it's a big time.
Was he working there or buying
No,
groceries?
he's buying groceries, and still waiting for the call. I guess.
Now, how lucky do you get when you get a Skid Row motel where the letters are burned out like this?
Unbelievable.
How often do you get
It'd
a
be done-
chance like that?
That would be done digital today.
No, that's Gary Gray. We did all the driving shots and exterior shots. I don't remember who this girl was. I hired her because she had these huge fake tits, Now this is the same room. This is the same room that Jimmy got sawed up in.
Right.
Might have been the same day.
Yeah.
You know, I think we put some cheap wood paneling on the wall to make it look a little different. And we shot some of this backwards, and so that his hat would land on his head.
Oh yeah.
And the way he shot things backwards back then is you had to turn the camera upside down.
Right.
You turned the camera upside down and you filmed it. Then you cut the film out, turned it right side up, and it ran
They
backwards.
still do that today.
Do they?
Yeah,
I
just
think they would do it
saw,
optically.
I just saw somebody's DVD commentary about something, and they said that's what they did. They turned it upside down and pulled it out of the camera and put it back in order.
We did a lot of that in Deep Space for all the tentacles wrapping around people, which didn't always work out great because they had to have so much methicil slime on the tentacle to get it to come off your face. That moment right before you got hit, your whole face is slimy.
Gooey.
Yeah, so you had to make those cuts pretty fast. Now see, yeah, we've just put up some paneling here. I love shooting in a studio though. I do. I love the convenience of things.
She was really defying gravity in that last shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't hear the sound while we're doing this, but if I remember right, Jay is like at this point saying something completely
different
counter than what's actually happened.
Yeah.
And I remember people laughing pretty hard in the theater when this was going on.
You know, it's so funny. The distributors. There you go. The distributors put this, gave it a premiere. There's my house.
There you go.
The corner of Camrose and Hightower. I drive by it every time to the Magic Castle. Now here's where Scott. Scott kind of blew it. He didn't tilt up and down with Fox Harris, who is a great actor from Sid and Nancy and Scared to Death and Repo Man.
Right.
He's the guy driving the car with the alien.
Fantastic in Repo.
And of course, I liked him because he was in Forbidden World. He's the guy who fed his tumor to the monster.
Right.
But he was a real good friend of Dawn's.
Yes.
And that's how we came to have him.
Yeah, he's funny as hell in this, and he's also really, really funny in Deep Space. He's got a great.
Yes.
He's got the best scene in Deep Space, I think. I have a drill in the back, he says. He's really.
This should do the trick.
Yeah, he was a really funny guy.
So they have this premiere at the Egyptian Theater, in the big theater, and they kind of almost forget to invite us because at this point we're now unimportant again.
That happens a lot.
And and Dawn had just gotten a boob job, so she was just kind of swelled up, and she went in this white dress, and it was dynamite. And I believe we were actually heading. If I'm not mistaken, we were heading for our honeymoon or something the next day, or on some kind of vacation. We were going somewhere, and we go to this Egyptian, and here's this almost like a freak show going on. There's Kit Natividad, and there's Paul Marco, Kelton the cop from Plan 9 in a police uniform, walking around, and all this sort of stuff. And they really kind of treated us like we didn't exist, even though I own the movie.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that part.
They got up and they gave these speeches, 3 or 4 Italian guys, and it was them as me. And finally, I'm in the bathroom at the urinal, and the one Italian guy who owned the company comes in, and he's sitting there and taking a leak next to me. He looks over at me and goes, "Sorry for what we did to you tonight."
Nice. Nice.
I said, "It's okay. It's okay. They only owned home video and only for 7 years, so."
Hey, they were paying the bill down there, so they could do what they wanted.
They could do what they wanted.
Yeah.
But it was such a bizarre thing to see it on the big screen.
It was a lot of fun, man. That audience went nuts for this. It really it was a lot of fun to see people reacting to this movie. They had a big spread too. I remember they had a lot of food there, which was good.
Yeah.
And they were cutting like ham with chainsaws and things like that. It was pretty hilarious. So.
This showed at the B-Fest in Toronto.
And Vancouver.
And Vancouver. And it also played theaters in New York on as Bleecker Street. Does that sound right?
Possibly, I don't know.
But anyway, it had its little run. They made a one sheet that I kind of semi liked. It's a very famous photo that Dan Golden and I did before we even made the film. Before the film even got to the first day, we took Michelle Bauer and we shot all those chainsaw shots. Some on the roof, some in Dan's studio, and those are the shots that you see most often. And it's hard to believe as we're talking about this that the real star of the movie was Linnea Quigley.
Yeah.
Linnea Quigley was a star. A B star, and her star was at its brightest when she made this show. And so to me it was really kind of Michelle really wasn't famous at this point. We just kind of knew
Wow,
her.
nice shot.
Thank you.
Good, congratulations.
We just kind of
Congratulations to
knew
both
Michelle,
you and her.
but Linnea was a selling point, and we thought Gunnar Hansen had only been in one other thing years ago. One Day Bit for Don Jackson. That's how I met him. He was a poet who lived on Mount Desert Island.
That's a funny gag right there too.
Yeah.
I like
in Maine, and he flew out for that first weekend, and then I introduced Gunnar to Eric Caden, who asked him if he'd like to come to a convention. Gunnar's never left the convention circuit since. He had no idea that he could go and sell his autograph, and he's done very well, and he's appeared in tons of shows since this. A lot of people hire Gunnar as an actor now, and he's doing real well.
This girl's got such a cute body. Hoy.
I'm sorry I had never seen more of her. I don't ever know what happened to her. She was had a tight little body, and she's that little black hair, brunette look that drives me crazy. I don't know how you are with brunettes, but
I know what didn't happen to her, me, and I regret that a lot because she was really foxy and very cute and very nice. I remember these girls are always, usually at least, the ones I've met have always been very, very nice. I thought she was really adorable.
Right behind her on the floor is, I think it's a licorice pizza crate, the old vinyl record store.
Yeah.
There's a Maltese Falcon. I think I even put an armed response video box on the fireplace. This is, like I said, this is my house, and my next door neighbor was Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
And behind me was a woman named Edie McClurg, who was a character actress. And I think she's a funny lady, but she just kept complaining about my garbage cans being out on the street too long. So now this is a tough shot, because this, as you can see, this bathroom is tiny. This was a duplex. I don't know what my neighbors next door must have thought with the sound of the chainsaw coming through the wall. Now we tried to spray her with the blood. It just really wasn't a happening thing. And back here there were no such things as Kinaflows, and China ball lighting wasn't really used. You're using very hot, small lights, and you've got to find a way to get them in there.
Yeah.
And it makes things very difficult. And Gunnar, of course, we lined him up. That's in the studio over at Lucky Brown's. We just set some bushes or potted plants and shot off a bunch of different stuff just to keep them throughout the film.
Yeah, now if you could turn this chainsaw down on the soundtrack, you'd hear me typing in the background during this scene, writing the rest of the movie. Because I'm literally in the front room writing. The AD had to keep coming up and saying, "We're about to shoot," and I had to stop, get my fingers off the typewriter.
Well, it wasn't as big a panic because you knew you had 5 days between the first weekend and the second weekend to shoot the second weekend.
Plenty of time. Plenty of time to write the rest of the movie.
Well, I think the sort of film noir approach worked on this. Lee was a lot more familiar with Chandler and stuff than I was. I mean, I liked the idea, but I hadn't really read it.
Yeah.
My knowledge of this was from watching the movies.
I don't know how much I'd read at that time either, but I just, in a drunken panic, this is what came out, and I thought it was fun to play with the whole idea. I mean, it's definitely a throwback to the 30s and 40s noirs as a parody of that. So, that was pretty easy to write.
And I don't think anybody would have done it better than Jay.
No,
Jay was born to play this role.
Yeah, Jay should have been playing this his whole life. He should have had a TV series playing this guy because he's hilarious, I think. I think he's really great.
He's done I'd have to count how many films he's done for us since then. This was back in the day when I was at Raleigh Studios, and I shared an office with George Edwards, a guy who made Frogs and Queen of Blood and movies like that. And George had a 2-room place, and he wanted to rent the front room out. So everybody who wanted to see George had to walk through my space. We had one telephone with call waiting on it, and people would sit on the floor. Now there's my kid. There's Chris on the end, Tony Brewster. There's Dan Golden. Looks like Ted Tunney down there. It's a crew. What it is, that's the entire crew of the show sitting at the bar, including my own little boy, who probably shouldn't have been in a bar with a martini, but it wasn't a real martini.
It wasn't the first time or the last.
But people used to sit around, there's Tony Malinowski down at the end of the bar too, and Tony DeSalvo, the chainsaw wrangler.
Chris.
And people would sit on the floor, and they'd try to use one telephone with call waiting, and we would cast there and everything. But the funny thing back then was that Kevin Costner was our gardener. And he was the guy trimming the hedge and watering the plants in our office, and he'd just been in a little movie called Shadows Run Black for a company called Mesa Films, who were not too far from us. And those were the days at Raleigh, and we did Phantom Empire there as well, and perhaps some other things. It was a great place just to hang out. and a great place to show the movies at the Chaplin Theater.
You should have got that gardener in one of your movies back then.
You know what? Didn't he want to do one that Troma has called Sizzle Beach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
First I showed him Samantha Kelsey.
This was funny.
Then I showed him a picture
Then
of
he
the
just keeps
chainsaw
showing him, and he
on
finally does
Sally's
the
place.
he does a hand shadow of a bunny
Then I showed him
being
how to
with
make
it
a
getting
shower.
its head cut off by a chainsaw.
Oh, and only Jay could pull that off. This-
I hope you haven't been
This
waiting.
is good. You know, you have to do in these kind of films is you have to make the most of your locations because you don't have the ability to move a lot. A company move is a costly, time-consuming thing. So if you're going to have a scene in a bar,
How'd you pick me?
you got to have enough scenes in a bar to make the whole day.
right.
And so you tend to, unless you're in a studio like Lucky's where you're alternating sets, your scenes, you have to have enough scenes to make the day. And when you're making a movie in 5-6 days, you're looking at about 15 pages a day. So you can figure that 15 total minutes has to happen in that bar.
Yeah, when you back in the day when I wrote these kind of movies, you really had to be a writer and a production manager at the same time because you had to plan the schedule of the movie to and match it to your script so that you could, because if you wrote like one scene that was a quarter of a page where there's someplace else, people just go, you're out of your mind. We're not going to move the company to go to this 1/4 page scene. You had to have enough scenes to make a day or at least half a day someplace to make it worthwhile. Best if you could get a day done in each location. So if the company moved, it was between days instead of that. So these things became sort of like puzzles that you had to put together too, and try to find a way to make
Yeah,
it
and you
work.
can't lump it all in one 15-page
No.
stop. You got to
Yeah,
keep
break
coming
it up.
back.
Yeah,
Because even a company move that's overnight, an overnight company move, it's still about a 2-hour load in the morning. So you lose the first couple hours. If you walk away at night and leave the equipment there, you can come back and get running in about 40 minutes.
right.
I know the
But
birthday person.
every movie can't be My Dinner with Andre.
No. Now over there is Jesse Long wearing a little plaid shirt. He was our script supervisor. And he's America's most abducted by aliens, the person most abducted by aliens in the United States. He's famous sort of for being probed, abducted by aliens. And
Got a crystal that he wears around
yes,
his neck
around that they took out of his
leg. They found a crystal that no one can explain.
they
that was-
can't analyze it or know what
that
it
was in
is.
his leg, and he wears it in a medallion, I think, around his neck.
Or a little
right?
bag,
or
I
a bag
think, or
something.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess he's, and that makes you believe it a little bit more. So I don't know where we're at. What, like a half hour into this movie or something, and she's just now arriving. The star.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
the
they've been
time?
looking for her.
Yeah.
They've been looking for her.
So there we got.
Every girl has to take their top off in this. Dawn was spared, but yeah,
Which I
everybody
don't
has.
know why, because Dawn has nothing to be ashamed of there either. But
No. Well, once you
She's
marry
doctors.
the director, you can start
Oh,
picking and choosing. You can pick and choose
well,
the
you had
roles.
her, you had her taking her top off before you married her.
You know, it's funny. It's funny because when she had no real tits, she was taking her top off all the
they
time.
were pretty cute. They were cute.
Yeah.
She had breasts.
She was pretty good looking there in the tomb, but I didn't care for the stuff in the surf Nazis. I didn't think it put her in her best light.
I don't remember that movie.
No, I don't either. But you know what? There's a movie that was actually pretty good. It was made by a bunch of kids who worked for us on these things, who inherited a little
Bob
money.
Tennell.
Bob Tennell and Peter, the guy who actually made the movie. Peter. Okay. Anyway,
Who knows?
he's actually the director, and he put up the money.
IMDb that one.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? You know,
Well,
they did the usual. They went with
Peter cares.
Troma, and that was it.
Yeah, and Troma kept all the money.
That was it.
That's the way it works.
Well, at least you know now, Lloyd and them actually tell you right up front that they'll distribute a movie, but you'll make nothing. Back when I gave them a picture, there actually was the onus that they would do their best to try to make you some money, which was not quite true.
No.
So anyway,
There's a lot of that in this business.
you know, Lee, there's a line in this, and I know it's got to be one of yours because I don't understand it.
Yes.
And he says, "Different strokes for different folks. That's what makes the Super Bowl." Now, what the hell does that mean?
I don't remember that at all. I don't-
Well, that's yours.
Yes,
That's yours.
You know, it's 20 years ago.
But I mean,
I don't know.
that's
if
not an
true.
expression you used to say.
No.
Oh,
Habit I have.
okay.
That's what
it's right
makes
in this scene.
Well, that's what makes a horse race or something. Like, I don't know. Are you sure that's in there? I don't
Yes,
remember this.
different strokes for different folks.
Maybe
That's what
Jay,
makes the Super Bowl.
maybe Jay ad-libbed it.
Different strokes for different
Who
folks.
knows?
Could be. Now, he wasn't a bad one for doing that, but a lot of actors are bad for ad-libbing stuff because they know you're in such a hurry that you probably won't do another take
Yeah.
to make them do the line right. So there's a lot of actors who pull little things on you while you're rolling, figuring that they've kind of got you over a barrel because this is one take territory.
Yeah, but this movie, I don't remember a lot of ad libs. I think most
No.
of this movie is scripted, so we have to accept the blame for anything said. I just don't remember that passage, nor do I. Like I say, the only thing I remember is one night writing while you were shooting in the back room, and that's it.
Speak up a little bit more.
Okay, well,
Just a little bit more.
We only got the one mic, so.
I understand. Yes, this is very low tech. You know the people I find stick to the script more than anybody, or is when you make some kind of a bikini movie. For whatever reason, the people who do the bikini movies do the dialogue exactly verbatim as written. That doesn't even come to their mind that they could change it a little bit or ask to change it. They do it just as written.
Maybe wearing a bikini reduces your ability to ad lib.
Cuts off if it's tight.
Yeah.
Cuts off the air to your boobs. Now this girl's Trisha Brown. And you might ask, who's Trisha Brown? But I have been asked that before.
Yes.
Trisha Brown was a girl who ran a company called California Wildcats. It was a catfight wrestling video company. And Michelle and some of the other girls, they wrestled like apartment wrestling, they used to call it, where girls would scratch each other and claw around and roll around on the floor for 20 minutes.
At your house?
No, at their house, on
Or
video.
for a movie.
For a
okay,
movie, and
for a
they'd get
movie.
naked,
Oh.
and no sex, but they'd be struggling and fighting. And she had this company that sold these and produced these videos.
Yeah.
And she was in Phantom Empire, and she did a little wrestling scene with Michelle in that. So we brought her back in this because I thought she was kind of talented. She had a funny, strange kind of look, and then when we were doing the scene at the end, she said, "You know, I'm a fire eater."
Right.
And she said, "If you'll give me some money, I'll go get some white gas. I guess that's what they call kerosene, and I'll do this fire eating act." And we gave it. She ran around the corner and came back, and we added it to the film. She does this whole little
Oh, she's the fire eater
thing.
at the end of her hair.
Yes.
Her hair's like slicked back.
Yeah,
or
she's
something.
wearing some kind of little.
She looks
little
way
headdress.
way different then. Yeah.
Yes. Now this is the same set as the motel set, same set that Jimmy Williams got sawed up in with the Elvis painting.
You are destroying the illusion of this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you know,
You're
and
telling
now it's
too much.
painted though. It's painted a different color.
I know, but no, I would have never known this was the same set.
Well, the headboard might be the
Looks
same.
completely
Looks
different to me.
completely different. The
Completely.
magic of Hollywood.
Right.
It's a three-sided set,
Whole new
and
land.
which means that there's an open side to it to the left, and that's what would look across the stage to the other side. And so you have a door flat over there, and then the wall, and then behind us here is the table that has the chainsaw on it. Like I said, every girl has to take that top
Yeah,
off.
that's mandatory.
You know what I really missed is I should have had all these three girls in bed together.
That probably should have been, that's probably should be a law in most movies. Every girl should take her top off right at the beginning.
You know what?
Get it out of the way.
You know, I don't think Michelle owned a bad dress.
No. Well, she doesn't look bad in it.
You know what? Kmart. She looked good in Kmart.
Yeah, she was you could wrap her in paper and it'd still look good.
The first time I met her, she came in,
Michelle Bauer, I love
Michelle, to read on the tomb. And then when I said, there's some nudity in this film. And she pulled her top down and she said, "No problem." I went, "Well, okay." So later she comes back and we've got to go through her wardrobe to pick the outfits that she's going to wear in the show. And she kept parading out in what was basically a private one-on-one fashion show after hours at Cinetel.
You
And
bastard.
she looked great in everything. You look in the tomb and she's great in every outfit she's wearing.
Yeah.
This is funny. Jay's wearing like some red boxer briefs or something there. Now I don't know why
No, honey,
we cut the Eye of Horus into his chest, but I think it probably got something to do with licking the blood off of him. It just seemed like the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? Strangely enough, when he puts his shirt on, though, the blood bleeds through the shirt because we don't usually have that kind of continuity on our shows. And it must have been.
It was an accident.
It must have been an accident. The blood was still on his body and it soaked through the shirt.
Accidentally good continuity.
No, it had to be.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have done that
No.
purposefully.
Yeah.
Now we went down to, there was a little shop on Hollywood Boulevard. We went down there during the tomb and we bought all these Egyptian artifacts.
And here comes one of the most famous lines in this movie, where he says, "That's the biggest bra I've ever tasted." Yeah.
You know, they did it again. That Grant Waldman took and did the same scene in Teenage Exorcist, and Jay says, "That's the best gag in the picture."
What?
They put the bra in his mouth.
Oh, the
he
same
pulls it
thing?
out. He says, "That's the best gag in the picture."
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
That's a
you're gonna
different
steal.
line. That's a different line at least.
Yeah.
Here he goes. Makes no sense whatsoever. That's what makes it good. It's the biggest priorities. It makes no sense.
So Gunner, same thing what you were saying too. We didn't have the ability to take Gunner with us to all these different locations, so we just put some potted plants and stuck him in there and shot him looking through the curtain, looking through the plants, looking through the curtains. We do them all at once, and I think he realized, of course. I mean, he knew coming out that he was only working a couple days, but I don't think he was expecting to literally be in like every shot.
Yeah.
You know, what's his face? Albert Pune apparently did that with Steven Seagal and Gary Busey and these guys. I don't know how they set for it, where he simply lined them up and shot all their close-ups and then went on to some other scenes and then shot the other actors on other days. And he pieced this whole movie called Ticker together out of pieces of stuff shot on separate days. And I wouldn't think certain actors, like I would think Steven Seagal would not sit for standing by himself in a room and doing his lines to the script supervisor.
I doubt he minds. It looks like he's pretty isolated in his movies usually.
That could be true. That could be true
usually
too.
Sitting in the shadows, mulling something over.
That's an odd close-up of her. And there's no wall behind her either. I'm not sure that wasn't the open side of the set. I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah, it's dark. Well, you know, I just watched a commentary on The Mist about 2 weeks ago, and Frank Darabont said he mentions a number of sets that only had two sides, that they just built two sides of the set. So this movie's actually got a third wall. So it's actually a little bit more complicated than The Mist.
Well, you know, there certainly are sets in this that maybe only two sides. I've seen a lot of pretty good two-sided sets.
Yeah, they spent a lot more on The Mist than this. And
you know,
you could afford a third wall. I'm
now I've
impressed.
got to see. I'm
impressed. They spent like $40 million or something on that movie, and only got two sides.
And how is it?
I thought it was pretty good.
How is the Mist?
I like the movie.
It's misty.
I like it a lot.
Is it like The Fog?
No, not at all. Except there's, mist.
Okay.
It's mist, not fog.
Mist,
But,
not fog.
no, it's good. Frank Darabont's really good guy, good director.
Now this is a time here when I'd never seen David Letterman before, and I didn't know what David Letterman's show was.
These could well be the earliest David Letterman jokes in a movie.
I just kept saying to Lee, what does that mean? He just says, it's funny, just keep it in.
Just do it,
I said, I don't know, who's David Letterman?
I was a huge David Letterman fan, still am. I love Dave Letterman, he's the best. And this is early on. I mean, Dave had only been on, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at this time, I think, when we made this movie. And there's at least 2 different gags that talk about David Letterman and people having to get home in time for David Letterman. And
well, this is one of them.
Yeah.
Where the girls can't get the chainsaw started, and she said, "Let's hurry up. It's almost time for Letterman to start."
There you go. and then later the cop says something about it. He said, "Oh,
get a VCR."
I was watching I had to watch Letterman or something." He says, "Well, how was he?" He goes, "Oh, the guests weren't any good," which is like a joke because the guests had nothing to do with Letterman back in that day. It was really all about Dave. But early Dave jokes, and I'm glad I got there first because and Dave's still going strong. I love Dave.
Well, you're the one who turned me on to Howard Stern.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Howard Stern before either. And that's when he had his TV show on Channel 9.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
That was a funny show. I'd buy that on DVD.
Man, that show was just amazing. I couldn't believe they were doing that. But Howard was great too. So, he still is.
You know, there's so many things in this film that today nobody would let you get away with it. Nowadays, everything's so legal. Like we say Texaco here, and they would say, the lawyers would now say, well, that's not cleared, and that painting of Elvis, do you have a sign off on using that painting? They would ask about all these different things, and we were pretty hard and fast, just kind of doing what we wanted to do. We were flying without fear.
I mean, is Texaco really going to complain? I mean, everything's way too lawyered today. The lawyers make the law so that they can get a lot of money to be making the law and enforcing the law, and it's nonsense. I mean, I get notes all the time about stuff that can't be law. I mean, if you just pick random names, they do searches now to see who's got the name. That's just so ridiculous. There's billions of people out there, and hundreds of them are going to have the same name. It's just insane. This is lawyers trying to run our country.
Well, what somebody said is that nobody ever got fired for saying no. So if there's any chance at all, they'll say no.
Right.
Because if they say yes and there's a problem, then they've got a problem.
Right.
And it's just kind of ridiculous.
Proves what great lawyers they are. They're all a bunch of jackasses. And I'm telling you, lawyers out there, kiss my butt. Hate them.
We'll get sued by Texaco next week.
Well, we'll get sued by the lawyers. Fuck.
We mentioned Black and Decker in this, and there's whiskey bottles or beer bottles, and sometimes we try to Greek stuff out. But there's a lot of things we never thought about.
Oh, and Black and Decker is mentioned
consider.
affectionately. There's nothing bad about Black and
I
Decker.
don't want to go.
No.
home.
We like Black and Decker.
Well, you know,
They should have been the sponsor of this movie.
they should have been. I don't even know if those are Black and Decker
Should have
chainsaws.
given you free chainsaws.
Now that shot before where the chainsaw comes down in front of Jay, that's a real chainsaw and the blade's running because it had to stop right in the middle of
Yeah.
the frame. And these things are scary.
Yeah.
I mean, if it just touches you,
You drop that on Jay. That's
it just so, you know, it's a long lens, I'm sure. And a lot of times we did take the chains off, which was time consuming, and we put a frayed hemp rope on there, and the blade would vibrate the rope to the point where the fraying kind of made it blur around the edges.
But not that shot.
Not in that shot, because you just couldn't get away with it. If you see it too clearly, you just couldn't get away with it.
Yeah, if that thing had touched Jay.
I
there'd been a lot of-
I was nervous.
been a lot of reshooting. Cause
We did that same thing in Deep
Too
Space
active.
where they fight the monster with a chainsaw, and Charlie Napier, of course, was a chainsaw sort of fellow. So he just said, just give it to me and
Hand it over.
just hand it over and get out of my way. You know, but here these are girls and they're holding these things, and these chainsaws are heavy.
Yeah.
They weighed a ton. The big ones really weighed something. And I remember I was at a comic book convention or horror convention or something one time, and I was give a little chat, and a kid walked in at the end, and he had a chainsaw, and he wanted me to sign the blade of the chainsaw, and I said, first uncap it and show me there's no gas inside.
Yeah, no kidding.
One time I saw a kid who had tattooed Michelle Bauer with a chainsaw on his arm. His whole upper arm was the Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers.
Unbelievable.
I tried to get a .com for Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, and somebody already had it. There's a band. There's a rock and roll band out there called Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. And I wrote them. I said, hey, so you're going to take the title of the movie. Shouldn't I at least get a copy of the CD?
Yeah.
And never heard from them.
Yeah. Did they have a CD?
You know what? I think they did. But I thought, there's the blood on the shirt.
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. Look at that.
Fantastic,
Wow.
man. Fantastic continuity.
I'll be damned.
Man, and that cost you a shirt, too.
You know, there's so much weird stuff here. People merchandising. I constantly am. I'm a person who is very diligent about protecting my rights. And I go on eBay, and there are people bootlegging T-shirts, Hollywood Chainsaw T-shirts. Right on eBay right now is a clock, the Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers clock that you hang on your wall. I didn't really bother them because I figured, well, they're probably just cutting out a photo one by one and putting them into a clock face. But I did go to the T-shirt guys and say, hey, come on, you know. And there's a place that's bootlegging replicas of the poster.
Jay's great in this scene here. Oh, yeah? Somebody's bootlegging
The poster, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I picked up, somebody sent me from overseas, there were some postcards from Turkey or Greece or something. There's some Hollywood Chainsaw Hooker postcards.
Yeah, let the fame spread.
Well, you know what? It would be great. See, we just want our piece.
You can't. Well, I never got any pieces
We just
anyway,
want our
so
piece.
that's your problem. I collect nothing, no matter what happens. So.
Well, I've never been able
I
to
just-
turn the T-shirts. We did
Hey,
make a
start
comic
selling
book.
start selling your own stuff.
We did make a Hollywood Chainsaw Hooker comic book, and we're printing it in conjunction with this edition. And there's a little thing on the disc where you can go and see how to order it. And it's going to be a limited edition because I can't really be bothered with flooding the market. I'm not in the comic book business. I love that sign. Watch out. Now this was obviously they're right there. Somebody'd say, "Did you clear that picture of Marilyn
Yeah,
Monroe?"
it's impossible.
It would be.
Well, I
impossible.
hope everybody doesn't rise up and sue you now.
I think the best one. Well, I think there's the fact that this is 20-some years old. I think it's latches. It's called
Hopefully.
legally.
Yeah.
If you let something go too long, you
Yeah.
can't complain about it later.
It's good.
But there was a show I did not too long ago, and there was a painting of the Sistine Chapel of Michelangelo to see, and they wanted to know if we had a sign off on Michelangelo.
yeah.
They wanted to know if we had a sign off on that. I said I sent Michelangelo an email, but he hasn't gotten back to me yet.
Get down to the Perdome Lane area, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got
That's
some kind
fallen
of
into the
warehouse
PD
there
now.
they turned into
You would almost think
Oh,
so.
I would think so.
Yeah.
have a big party
Sure of
tonight.
it.
So here we are back in Transworld's offices. We really weren't there that much. We must have been there one day.
Jay really makes a good comic Private Eye.
No.
He really wears that hat and that stubble well.
He's got the beats down.
Yeah.
He's
He's
got.
just so sad sack. It's really good.
No, Linnea's still making films. I haven't seen her in some time. But I would say that this is probably not this particular film per se, but this period of time is probably the peak of her stardom.
Yeah.
When she was making Creepazoids and was she in Slimeball Bolorama?
I don't know, man. I don't see those movies, but she was in. You know, I think her big break was Return of the Living Dead.
That was the film. That's what put her on the map.
Yeah.
And the dance she did in that, and the fact that she was wearing sort of an appliance over her
I never
pubic
got that.
area.
It appeared that she had like Barbie pube. There was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I couldn't tell was she shaved or just didn't have.
It was an
any plumbing.
appliance.
Yeah.
But I mean that just shows you the power of sex. Guys just went ape
But you
shit.
couldn't tell what was going on
No.
there. It was very odd.
I can't believe I paid this chick to come back and do this when I probably could have done it at the door
Yeah.
at the movie tech. I actually brought her all the way down to the office
Another $100
for that.
Damn
And
it.
she did that line. Oh, she got more than $100.
Whatever.
She
Did
did
she?
that. She did that line about
Did
6
she?
or 7 times.
Did
I'm
she?
a dick, huh?
Yeah.
There's no such thing in Hollywood.
Wow. That's another line made famous by her. Really? She got more than $100?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I should have acted in this.
Well,
movie.
nudity, yeah.
Oh,
Nudity.
she's naked in it.
Yeah.
Now
Now
she
this-
wasn't nude in that shot.
No, but once you establish the rate, that's
Oh,
the rate.
really? You
Now
gotta-
this is the pink Cadillac that I rented
Yeah.
from some movie.
I love the story.
vehicles
I
thing.
love the story she tells here. This is probably my favorite scene with her because she's really hilarious.
Now her hair is all permed out.
Yeah.
This is because this was shot on a pickup day, probably, I don't know, might have been a month after the show, maybe been a couple weeks. But we went out with Gary Graver, and she had changed her hair.
I just assumed it was after sex frizz after rolling around with Jay on the floor there. So
Yeah, no, it's kind of wild because it's only in this scene.
yeah,
And the scene where her head's laying in his lap, all the car scenes.
yeah.
Once she gets out of the car and they're at movie tech again, her hair is back to normal.
I'm so unobservant. I never noticed it until now.
Well, you know, you got to work with these films a long time. You know, I've been watching this film, not continuously, but working with it for many years.
Yeah.
Many, many years. And people always say, oh, why don't you make a sequel to it or something? And I said, you know, I wouldn't want to go and make a sequel to it for the same 50 grand that we did it before. I'd want somebody to put up real money, or I'd want some famous guy to buy the rights from me, and they go make it.
You can't catch lightning twice.
Well, you know, believe me, people in this town have a tendency to want to take junk and make $1 million remakes.
Yeah. Well, they can do that if they pay. I hope I get something for it though.
I cut you in.
Thanks a lot.
Cut you in.
Thanks a lot. I always say this should be a musical. I mean, somebody should really.
You know what? I've heard that from people before as well.
Yeah, well, I was one of those people.
Well, you know what?
I
I'm
think
up
it
for
could
everything
easily-
as long as I don't have to do it.
Right. You don't have to do it.
If I don't have to do it,
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, whoever those people who did Little Shop of Horrors, listen in. 'Cause this could easily be the next Little Shop of Horrors musical, I think.
well, there's so many things that people could have done.
It's a mix of Little
with
Shop
it.
of Horrors and Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
It's got the blood of Sweeney Todd and the camp value of Little Shop of Horrors.
A little bit of Chicago.
A little bit of Chicago. And Sunset Boulevard.
He had it coming.
Yeah.
He had it coming. Oh, get your lawyers out.
Right. There you go.
Temple this way. These are the two cats that we had in the tomb.
Yeah.
They were on rollers. You just wheel
Still
wheel 'em
hanging around.
Wheel 'em around. This is the outside of Movie Tech. I wish we'd done our signs a little better, but I'm sure they were probably done with a Sharpie at the last moment.
Well, yes. Just the idea that there's a sign that says that is.
Hey, look, there's some fog there. We must have been.
As an accident. That's smoke from a generator.
No, there's some more fog.
More smoke.
Now this is a scene. There's a scene in Armed Response where David Carradine comes to some kind of a nightclub and beats the guy up right in the same location. Yeah.
Same scene, right?
This is the Junk Pilot Movie Tech, which is right outside the door of where you're filming, and it becomes a set all of its own. So this is we're heading into the final round up here.
That's amazing. This movie has flown by.
It has. It has, and everything's. Keep going. You're almost there. Again, would have been nice. Better sign. Better sign.
Oh, I think here comes a cameo of another semi-famous person. Gary Levinson, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now this is the temple set. There's a little sign. I thought of it at the last moment and asked somebody to make it. It said, "Please take a number. You'll be called. Please take a seat. Your number's called." And again, it wasn't really well done, so we don't feature it. There's not much of a set here. It looks like we put a table with a book on it.
Yeah.
And these are the temples. These are temple pieces that we rented. and they were from a movie called House 2, I believe. And John Ratzenberger looks through a hole in the wall and he sees an Aztec temple. And these sets went into storage after that, and we were able to go down and rent them. But they only had so many pieces. So this is, in fact, again, kind of almost a three-sided set. We had the back of it and a little bit of the sides of it, and there's nothing out. But it allowed us to get back with the camera and make the... Now look, there are candles on the table. Well, there you go.
People came in between shots.
And another great Michelle Bauer wardrobe malfunction about to happen. I like little Esther Elise there, though.
She's so cute.
She was.
Esther, if you're around, give us a call. Let's
Yes,
find out.
please.
Let's find out what you're up to. Like to know.
Disappointed the
She's
master.
adorable.
She had a husky little whiskey voice.
Yeah, she did.
She
Now
sure
your
did.
true
She's
nature
adorable.
is
Now she's
revealed.
probably gonna watch this and go, "You fuckers,
You
talking
bastards.
about me."
Yeah, you bastards don't talk about me. Well, it's all nice.
I'm always surprised that of all the people in the show, though, she never took the opportunity to try to sell an autographed photo of herself or go to a convention.
She probably
or
married.
anything.
She probably married some rich guy.
She was a snooty
I
little
hope so. I'd
Probably
like
got
to think
yeah.
so.
I hope it worked out, whatever it was. 'cause
Because most of these other people certainly have, done what they could with this, and I've never, Dan Golden's gotten into people before for selling photos and things that belong to him, but I've never really gotten into it with people. I don't care. That's the one thing you do see on eBay all the time are color photos, because there were color photo sets distributed with the film, and so you can't really control
Well,
that.
yeah, that they have the right to sell that.
Well, they're new photos though.
Oh,
they're not the
making the dupes.
They're not the original issues.
Making the dupes. But again,
That's a big ass,
that's a big hypo.
big hypo.
Filled with orange juice.
I'm sure.
A little vitamin C in the butt here.
I'm sure you've been stuck with bigger than that tonight, or whatever
I'm sure you've been
the line
Yeah,
is.
something like. Yeah, right.
No, it's your turn.
Jake. And she turns up the cat right here. Michelle.
As you can see, this is obviously a day when we were a little bit more panicked because the girls stay on their side of the line and Jay stays on his
Michelle
side.
gets so rude.
The blood of our ancestors.
Yeah,
What are you doing? Where are you taking her?
we do have a little wide shot, but this was done as a master just because it didn't seem like there was any way to do coverage on it, or we were desperate,
Yeah.
or both.
Time was burning, man.
Yeah.
Time to move on to the
I think
to the
shooting
dance of the double chainsaw.
I don't get that. People talk about that all the time, and I don't get it.
It's the concept.
I guess it
The
is.
concept, because she has trouble handling those chainsaws.
Only one of them's running too. I
Right.
couldn't get the other one started,
Very
but
good
the
enough.
one was putting out enough fumes for
Yeah,
everybody.
You guys are all getting gassed out.
No ventilation, no medic on the set.
Going to make an excellent offer.
Oh my God.
I would like to see Jay do this character again, or a character like that, because he's just so much fun, and he doesn't look much different than he does there either.
No, he's fairly ageless.
He could jump right back in and be cracking it up again. It's definitely one of my favorite things he's ever done, as far as just watching him and enjoying his performance. And I think it's one of the bigger parts he ever had. I think he really carries this movie.
Yeah, I mean he is the lead.
Yeah.
Look down upon us,
Now this is the big temple,
faithful servants,
the big temple set with our set pieces ringed around in a couple corners there. We've got the mummy case back there. I'm sure I've pointed this out before, but it's Grace Jones's mummy case from Vamp, and that is her face, still on the mummy case. I don't know where we got it from, but I'm sure we rented it legitimately.
It's interesting. Gunnar Hansen doesn't look anything like he looked in Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this movie.
This is true.
Not a bit. I wouldn't even recognize him.
Well, they asked him if he'd wear this mask or something. He said no.
No way, huh?
This I don't understand what this was all about. I think it was the idea of the trying to make a little ceremony out of this, because this was a big set and it was our big day. And
I think you're filling
now
up.
that girl right there, Esther Elise, she's wearing Michelle Bauer's costume from the tomb.
Yeah, I think this was you maybe doing a little bit of padding.
Yeah, that might be it.
Could be. And Michael Sonny kind of chewing the scenery here to.
Well, the script supervisors will come and they're supposed to come and tell you kind of what they think your running time is.
Yeah.
And if they come up at some point and tell you they think you only got 60 minutes, you take what you got for the rest of the shoot and you do the most you can with it. Now, Movie Tech was a kind of place that, and and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but this is, it was kind of a magnet for sort of like homeless kind of guys, and guys would get there and they'd drink beer and they'd sleep in the projection room floor and stuff, and Lucky always thought, you know, that nobody would rob him if he had like a built-in security force. So because there were people there, you know, he allowed these guys to kind of there, and there'd be guys hanging around there drinking beer. Well, they had these girls, and as far as I know, as what I was told, is that they might actually be streetwalkers, and they came in. I don't know who they were, but they offered to be in the show, and they drank all the rat beer before we could get to it. We went out to the cooler later; it was all gone. But these girls were, I hasten to say, perhaps from down around Sycamore.
Careful, you're gonna get sued.
No, I'm just saying what I had been sort of told. I don't know this to be a fact. So, well, we only had 4 of them, which would be a party anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they're drinking motor oil.
Yeah.
They're drinking motor oil.
You gotta get the right kind of girl to drink motor oil on set.
Yeah.
They'll go right for it. These girls, they were out of beer.
That one looks like a guy.
They were out of beer, so they're drinking the motor oil. I think they actually are. Looks like they are.
Yeah.
They don't know what the acting is.
They don't know. So we brought the cats inside now. Now the cats are inside the inside the set.
You're ruining it again. I thought there were 4 cats.
You know, it pays to keep these sets dark. They look a lot more expensive and important.
Yeah.
Now she's going to do the fire.
She looks great here too.
The fire thing. Yeah. Well, it's
made up really nice.
It's cool padding, as you would maybe call it or accuse me of.
And she's got nice.
And now she's got to take the top off.
She's got nice makeup. She looks totally different than she did in the earlier scene. I never even knew that was the same girl.
And Esther's over there, and she's like on Plan 9, staring off. I think we told them to do that. They're sort of like the guards.
Yeah.
But you know, you kind of, when you're filming stuff like this, you kind of think, you know, I got really lucky right now. I got really lucky. Just to have a girl come up and say, you know, I'll take my top off and I'll rub some fire on my tits.
Because that's another minute and a half of running time.
I know. I like Tricia, but I would never mess with her because she could really kick your ass.
Yeah.
She was.
Set it on fire after she's done kicking.
Yeah. Yeah, and then she has to take a little drink out of a plastic cup. It looks like. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's what it was. It was kerosene.
Yeah, and Esther, you saw Esther suddenly got a little startled there. She woke her up. She went, what the hell?
So now they're.
She thought the set had caught on fire.
You can see there's a fog in the room, and it's not a fogger. It's the running chainsaw inside the mummy case.
You almost killed her.
It's exhaust.
It's crazy.
I know. It's a terrible thing.
I remember she came out of there and she was completely dazed and almost asphyxiated.
Right.
Almost killed Linnea Quigley.
Now, she has this full body makeup on. She's wearing a little sparkly thong, but everything else she has on is body paint.
Yeah.
And I remember I think Dawn might have done the makeup on this show, but she was there trying to paint this snake, and it was taking forever. And I remember that Linnea was married to a guy named Steve Johnson, who was a pretty well-known makeup artist.
Yeah.
And he finally got in his car and drove down there and pitched in painting her. And strangely enough, even though she is actually topless, this clip has appeared on more network television than just about anything else. And I don't know if people don't realize that
Of course they don't.
She's actually naked, except for that G-string. But this clip has been on television quite a few times on Current Affair and Inside Edition, Entertainment Tonight.
Which is amazing because it really looks like you can see her nipple there.
Well, if you're in the right angle, but maybe like that, you might not know. You might guess.
Let me tell you, however long it took to paint the snake, if I painted it, it would have been longer.
I don't think my hand would have been steady enough for the work.
Take your sweet time with that paint job.
Yeah. Now these are the smallest chainsaws we could find.
Yeah.
And one of them's running, and one of them's not. And they're heavy. You can see her arms barely ever get past her hips.
She's having trouble with it.
She does eventually kind of rip them across. Yeah. She's having, because she's a slight little thing.
She's not the strongest girl on the set.
So this film.
I think the concept of the virgin dance of the double chainsaws is what people like more than the execution necessarily. But you know, she looks so cute there. It doesn't matter. I did feel like this was like when we were watching it in the theater. This maybe took a little bit too long because it
I
kind
found
of
the
a
film.
dead
I found
spot.
if not the chainsaws, I think the film did run out of gas
Yeah.
toward the end.
Yeah.
You know, I think just due to lack of plot. You know, it just ran out of things to
Plot?
do.
What the hell? I didn't know I was so about a plot in there.
But you know, I'll tell you something. I feel like this movie inspired a lot of other films to not make this kind of film, but it sort of ushered in an era of funky titled movies.
Yeah.
Where people were going out of their way to make Sorority Girls and The Creature from Hell and I think somebody chainsaw cheerleaders or whatever.
Did the slime ball Bolorama or whatever happened before or after this?
I'm going to say that it happened maybe after this because Michelle, I think, is in that as well, and I believe that they picked her up off of this show.
Yeah.
However, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity, which I believe was probably the first of those titles to do that, come up with this quirky title and catch on, that preceded this. You know, but there's, and to this day, I think people are still trying to make chainsaw cheerleaders and.
Well, they just did. Yeah, they just made a chainsaw cheerleader.
Stuff like that. Chainsaw.
The word
Sally,
chainsaw, you could put almost anything with
yeah.
it. It's good. People like it.
There's a certain magic. There's certain words that work out together, and certain words don't. Sorority Girls and The Creature from Hell, I always thought was an awkward title. Invasion of the Blood Farmers is a perfect title. All of those words have nothing, they shouldn't be in the same sentence together, yet they have a magic.
Yes.
Now, I didn't want to call this Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, I wanted to call it Chainsaw Hookers.
Right. That was the original title.
And the distribution company, the video distribution company, Camp Video, they wanted the word Hollywood in there so that people might make the connection with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I didn't really care. I didn't agree with it, but I wasn't something I was
got to
really
tell you, that
willing
was
to fight about.
Yeah, I mean, back in this day, we were often very controlled by producers, and the thing that was liberating about doing this movie was that we just did everything that a producer would have told us not to do. That's why I wanted to get involved, because I just thought, you know, I don't want to hear any nonsense from these people at this time. And the one thing that they stepped on was the title, and at that time I remember being really irritated because I thought, man, we can't get away with any movie ever without somebody messing with it. But in and I thought Chainsaw Hookers was a better title, but in retrospect, I think maybe they were right. Maybe this movie, the word Hollywood makes it better, makes it more interesting, and it definitely gives it.
Well, it makes it geographically desirable.
Yeah, and it fits in with, you know, Jay and the whole Chandler thing and all that stuff. So maybe they were right. You know, that was the one time maybe it was okay that they stepped in. But aside from that, I don't think there was a lot of tampering by anybody in this movie.
No, because they didn't know how films were made, and we're at a point where I wouldn't want to do something that everybody was telling us what to do. I think we're looking off the top of the set there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the Transworld period, and the Transworld period was a heavily controlled
Really
time.
Really.
And a lot of times controlled by people who have no business telling you what to do.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I'll go on record right now that anybody who's seen Deep Space, I can tell you that was a really terrific movie before they started messing with it, and that should have been our best movie. And I think that what they did and what they made everybody do on that really turned it into one of the lesser efforts, and it's unfortunate because there's still great scenes in it, but they really ruined it by forcing scenes that were more like Rambo, supposedly, and trying to take the humor out because they didn't want anybody laughing at their movies. They didn't realize.
Yeah, but Moishe took things very seriously.
Yeah, he said, nobody laughs at our movies, and I'm like thinking, well, yeah, but you're not having any fun with them either. That movie was.
Oh, they're
really
laughing
fun.
just for the wrong
Yeah,
reasons.
that movie was really, really fun in its initial cut, and they just took all the fun. Not all the fun, because there's still good scenes in it, but it's unfortunate. And this movie was really liberating because we just made sort of like the ultimate drive-in kind of a movie at that time.
It's a pity. Yeah, it's a pity that it didn't grind away more. But from the condition of the prints, I think it saw plenty of action. Plenty of action.
It's been played.
It's been played.
That's great what that guy does. He's very
Jerry Miller owned a police car and a police uniform.
Yeah.
And you could get the police car pretty cheap, but you had to get Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry had to play, and he had a tag that said Murphy, so his name was always Murphy in these movies.
He was worth it in that just one shot. I think here comes another Letterman joke here.
Yeah.
So Dave, if you're out there, that was a tribute to you. I'm sure you're watching this.
Yeah. Figuring how to sue us.
Yeah. No, Dave.
No. Latches. It's called Latches.
Dave's a good guy.
You let it go 20 years, and you can't say you never heard of the movie because Maxim magazine called it the fourth coolest B movie of all time.
Right.
And so that, in my mind, that gives you ample knowledge
That
this
makes
film
it so.
exists. That makes it
it
exist.
so.
Do you know what though? That actually was a pretty cool
Yeah.
honor
Yeah.
to be laid on this film at a time when it really wasn't even still in print.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, that came
out of print at that point. So that was cool. And like I said, we've shown this in England. We went to England at the Hampstead Theatre for the Everyman Theatre in Hampstead, I should say, and showed it there. And it's been around the world. It's been around the world, and for something that we did in just a few days with the concept that we might make a little money and have a little fun. Every once in a while you make a film that has some kind of legs to it, as opposed to maybe something you did that was better or classier or more higher quality that just gets lost in the ether.
We made a lot more expensive movies than this, but most of them are not as rumored as fondly as this one. And you know, for the most part, I don't like them as much as this, just because simply we were allowed to just get away with all kinds of bad stuff. You know, we got away with a lot of stuff.
And you know, as you say, we've certainly made movies with much higher budgets where people aren't bootlegging T-shirts and clocks.
Right. Right.
And postcards of the product.
They never did find the guy that called
So this is sort of the wrap-up, Lee.
Yeah. It's not over yet.
Almost over.
Jay's talking. You know, Jay's finishing it up with her. And I like the lighting in here. I think Scott did a really nice job throughout this movie. It functions as a sort of a tribute to low-budget movies, I think.
Yeah, the slats in a room that has no slats on the windows.
Right. I think Scott did a nice job through this movie.
He did.
And he's gone on to bigger and better things too.
As have some of us.
Yes.
I won't include myself in there.
Me neither.
This is the zenith. This was the zenith of what I'm all about.
This was the peak. This was a downhill after that. But, but you know, hey, we got to go to Vancouver.
She's a nice kid, so maybe
tear
I'll
that
let
place
her
apart.
That's right.
For
We
the-
found some babes over there
Some
too.
cute girls in
That was
Vancouver
good.
took us around for the week
That
while
was
we
good.
were up
that
there
one
for the
strip
film
bar,
festival.
That Cecil.
See the Cecil, yeah.
So that's it. There never was a student chainsaw nurses, bad to the bone.
Never meant to be.
Never meant to be. I used to do that. I did it on Phantom Empire and a bunch of other
Scalps.
films.
It was
Where
always a joke.
We always said that we were going to do something. People go, "Why did you do it?" And I just never intended to do it. We just wanted to tease you.
A joke, but I guess you had to explain it. It wasn't funny.
All the time. Okay, guys. Well, that's it for me, and that's it for.
Well, I'm not done.
You're not done.
I'll go to the end.
go to the bitter end.
I go. I'll watch it to the very. I don't know how much.
Jerry
longer
Miller, he played Murphy.
There he goes. Funny guy.
You loved him in Haunting Fear, I think.
Dookie Flyswatter. Did not put his real name
Jake
on
the
it.
bartender. Steve Wells, look at that. I remembered his name. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hey, and there were those cops.
Gary Levinson, former tenant at the Gray Bar Hotel.
Terminal Island, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but terminal enough.
Well, you know, he got a bum rap.
Yeah, right.
A rap and bum. I don't know which.
I think they didn't catch you for half of it. There's Ted, Corey.
Oh God. I saw Beth Thompson, the little blonde. She was sitting in the bar, the strip bar scene next to Jay when Linnea was dancing.
Yeah.
Some of these people, God, I haven't heard of them in a long time. Sally Ray was no relationship to me.
No. A lot of Rays out there.
Jill Connor, she was the girlfriend of Michael Sonny.
Right. Probably still is.
She's done no. That ended.
Oh.
That ended. Tony Malinowski from Alien Factor and all those
D.H.
old movies.
Wildsmith.
There you go, Swiss
She did a nice job on it too.
Yeah. Stills by Dan Goldman.
Classic.
I didn't know this many people worked on this.
Gary
Graver, George Scott, Beth Thompson, and Ralph Langer from Pittsburgh.
That's what it should say.
Yeah.
It should say Ralph Langer.
You
from
do like
Pittsburgh.
Howard Stern. Everybody's it's Pittsburgh Ralph.
That's Brent
Okay.
Mixon.
There you go.
Another guy who's
who's
done a lot of
great
stuff.
work.
Big stuff.
Ultravision, they're still in business. I
Joy
think.
Rencher.
United Color Lab is long gone. They were across the street from Movie Tech.
Hope everybody got their movies out of there when they shut it down.
I know I did.
We had to bust in to get it.
Yeah, we paid $50 to get the guy to open the
Get our negs out, man.
yeah, those that we could find.
Fugitive guy. There you go. That's it. Don Jackson. There you go.
There you go. Jesse Hawkins
Produced it.
So anyway, I hope all these guys have been getting their royalties over the years, although this hasn't really played on television very much.
Played Showtime a lot.
It played
right?
Showtime and HBO for years. It was licensed over and over and over again.
Well, what about now?
Maybe it's ready to make a comeback.
Frickin' Alan, if he showed up like that.
I know.
Alan.
That's
my
it. Bye. Bye.